home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sport. You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio.
This is Cymru Sport.
Got a jam-packed show for you this evening with lots of guests, lots of debate, lots of all things Cardiff City for the first hour, and then in the second hour, the Welsh Football Hour, we'll be discussing all things Welsh football, including JD Cymru Premier League. We'll be talking the EFL club and of course the national team, among other things. But let's get straight into it, and I'm delighted to be joined by the voice of Welsh football to a whole generation, and it is none other than Mr. Rob Phillips. Welcome, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Kevin. Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good.
Good. Thank you very much for joining me, and it's really interesting because obviously I've tried to get you on in various forms for a while, and I was very eager to have a conversation. But you're obviously a very busy man, and I think it's really interesting actually that obviously you announced over the weekend that you're kind of stepping away. Is it a full-blown retirement or kind of semi?
No, very much. I would say a semi-retirement. Yeah, as you probably know, there have been redundancies at the BBC. I was a voluntary redundancy, but I will be back in. So I've got one or two things that I want to do anyway, and it's just now is the time. I don't mind saying I'm 65, coming up to drawing a pension for long, so it's about time I took it a bit easier, and now seems an opportune moment. But I will still be at games. I'll be in press boxes, and who knows where I'll pop up next.
Indeed. It's really it's fascinating to me because you've had such a storied career, and you've certainly witnessed the highs and the lows of Welsh football, both at club level, but also the national team particularly. Talk to me a little bit about the national team. Obviously, going back for some of us older folk, it was quite painful at times. And then, of course, 2016, I think we experienced something that a lot of us had come to terms with that we were never going to experience with a major tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'll say is that I've been covering Welsh football I've been on the BBC 27 years, so nearly 28. I was 10 years on the Echo, where I had the privilege of covering Welsh football. I even did a little bit on the Argus on Wales before then. So it's been a long time. And I'm there in 93 when Wales were beaten by Romania, and the tragic events of that night. I was there when Mark Hughes' side just failed at the final hurdle in the playoffs to get to the Euros in 2003. And I'll tell you a little story which I'm really fond of telling because it says everything about the man, but also maybe I think I was there on behalf of fans. But when Wales qualified for Euro 2016 in Zenica in Bosnia, you remember it was the result elsewhere. And I went off on one in the commentary box about how good it was, etc., etc. And afterwards, I was in what they call a mix zone after games, where the manager and players will come out and they'll stop if they want to. Well, I was there with a cameraman, and Chris Coleman came out through the door, and obviously he'd been celebrating, and you remember the final was he didn't even know that Wales had qualified. He had to be told by Mark Evans, the international secretary, and he came out and gave me a big hug, because he's a big lad, Chris Coleman. And when he hugs you, you are hugged. And he said to me something I've always remembered, because it felt so special. He said, that's for people like you, Rob, who've seen us when we are, and he used the word, which I won't use, but when we were terrible, sort of thing.
Course,
and all the sort of rubbish you've had to watch. And it was a great night. And honestly, I've said it to a few people that night we were in a dry hotel, but we bought a few beers just in case there was a reason to celebrate. And we were about half an hour away from Zanitza where we stayed. And it was myself and Kevin Ratcliffe and Ewan Roberts and one or two others. It was a pretty small radio team out there. And we had a little quiet drink to ourselves because we bought some beers, as I said, on the way. And I remember saying to Kevin Ratcliffe, aren't you at all, you know, Rats, not only brilliant for Cardiff City when he was there, but an absolute legend in my eyes of the Welsh football team. Brilliant captain of the team, fantastic player. One of those Welsh players that you hold in great esteem. And you really feel at the time when he was playing in the 80s at his prime, and Neville Southall and Ian Rush, they all missed out in 93. They should have got to a finals. But I said to him, are you at all jealous that this team have done it and you haven't? And he said, not at all. He said, I'm just so chuffed that they've done it, as you know, that something that we couldn't do. And he's very brutal on it. He said, we didn't get there because we didn't deserve to get there. We weren't good enough. This team are. And I've always said as well that I think that night in Zanitza, Wales crossed the Rubicon, because Chris Coleman always used to say, I don't want to just qualify once. I'm not saying we're going to qualify all the time, but I want us to be regular qualifiers. And since then, I've been lucky enough to go to other Euros, to a World Cup as well. And who knows what might happen in this World Cup.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for Welsh football. The young players coming through at the moment, 16, 17, 18s, 21s. There's so much quality there. It's really exciting. With regards, you mentioned Kevin Ratcliffe. Funnily enough, out of all the various people I've been privileged enough to interview and speak to, Kevin Ratcliffe's one of my favourites, because as a kid, he was one of the first Welsh sort of national team players. It was just like a genuine hero to me. So to have the opportunity to have him on the podcast during COVID with myself and Andy it was a real privilege, you know, and such a nice guy, very honest in his opinions as well, which I always like. Rob, when you look, how difficult is it when you're commentating and, you know, going back to those sort of dark times where we weren't very good, shall we say? Like, how difficult is it to, obviously, you've got a job to do and stuff like that, but you're also a proud Welshman who wants Wales to do well.
Yeah, I missed the last bit then. How difficult is it to sort of say what you think while coping with the team? It's a hazard of the occupation. You know, you're never going to get on with every player. It's only happened to me a couple of times with Wales. There was one occasion when I think, if I remember right, I was on the Echo, and I wrote a match report, and Neil Slatter rang up to complain about either a mark I'd given him or a comment I'd made in the Echo about his performance. But generally, they just cope with it. I always remember, I don't know if you remember, Simon, but there was a spell when I was on the Echo where we were doing sort of colour covers of the Football Echo. So it was pink, and the one time we were going to, I think it was the Faroe Isles, and Rhys had hardly scored in his last 10 or 15 Wales games. It was rare. He'd gone a few games without scoring. And I wrote this piece about, it was about time he got goals for Wales again. And Terry Yorath, who was a brilliant, I was really close to Terry because I used to do his column on the Echo for him. I ghosted it for him. There was a front page of Ian Rush on the Football Echo saying, can you give us a goal, please, Ian? Words to that effect. And Terry Yorath brought it on the plane. So there was no escape. And he said, hey, Rushy, have a look at this. See what Rob has written about you in the Football Echo. But Rushy never batted an eyelid because he was just too good to worry about stuff like that. So players tend to know when they've had good games or bad games, and the really good players really don't worry about what you say. You've got to go in hard because that's your job. You're there for, I can be critical in commentary. The summarisers are critical, but they all know whatever club I'm covering, if it's a Welsh club, if it's two flies going up a wall, I want a Welsh fly to win. So I don't like to think, I mean, you don't always, maybe I've got to be, no, I won't say I've been careful at all. I think you just have to be sort of judge the situation. But I hopefully never ducked out of saying what I needed to say at an appropriate time.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, the people who are listening or watching you, they want authenticity and they want your honest opinions. It's just how you go about giving them, I suppose, isn't it? And it's being professional and stuff like that.
I've always said it's commentary. I've always said commentating for Radio Wales, it's not biased towards Wales, but it's commentary with a Welsh accent. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, I've got a Welsh accent, I think, but it's commentating from a Welsh perspective. And
Indeed,
that's different to being biased towards Wales. Yes, I get excited, but I get excited when, I don't know, Newport County score, Swansea City score, Wrexham score. But, and when Wales score and big games, we just know the importance of the Welsh national team. And I see it with other commentators as well. If you're not going to get excited when a goal goes in, don't bother commentating on football, because that's what it's all about.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the passion is what makes it. And I think the best pundits and the best commentators are the ones who let that passion come through. Obviously, there's a line and things like this, but I mean, ultimately, that passion coming through is massive. You've commentated on some very famous moments at club and national level, and that passion shining through during those moments is what makes it special. It is what makes it stick in the mind of people years later. Is there a particular moment for you where on your commentary career where you look back and you just think like that's just pure magic?
There've been plenty of times. I don't think I've ever been pure magic. What I mean is that I think there've been magical moments that I've had the chance to commentate on. And I suppose the most famous moment, other than my mistakes, it would be the Sam Vokes goal in the Euro 2016 quarter-final against Belgium. There's a strange story to that because it was a joint commentary with me and John Murray of the Radio 5 football correspondent. And he said to me just a few minutes before, you go second, Rob. I'll take the first half of each half, because you split it. He doesn't do one half, then I do the second half. We take half of each half. He said, you do the second, because if Wales win, there should be a Welsh voice on the commentary. So I missed commentating on the Hal Robson-Kanu goal. That was John Murray, and he did it in his... I am a huge fan of John Murray, so he did it in his exemplary fashion. But I had the pleasure of Vokes' header getting Wales to the semi-finals, totally unexpectedly. And I saw Sam Vokes a few weeks ago at Southampton when I was down there for an FA Cup game with Swansea, and he was there for TV, and I was chatting to him. We were reminiscing about 2016. Because he often jokes with me, I've made you famous because of that goal. And he's right. It's probably my most famous bit of commentary, I would venture. I don't know. But
that was certainly the moment when I was asking the question, that was the moment I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But it was remarkable, wasn't it? It was so unexpected, I think, for Wales fans. I mean, that whole tournament felt like the unexpected. We were happy to be there as Welsh fans, and it was like, if we can get out the group, that'd be great. But even before that, I think it was like, if we could get a goal, something to celebrate for all the fans there. And it just kind of, your ambition during the tournament kind of just kept growing. And it must have been...
Simon, we went to Sweden, as you probably remember, the week before, or the Sunday before, for a game. So we were there Thursday or Friday, I forget what day. Played Sweden, got battered in a friendly. And then, rather than go back to Wales, we then flew to Stansted and then flew out to France. And we had no idea when we were coming home. And at one stage, it was my son's birthday, my eldest son's birthday, at the end of June. And I was still there, totally unexpectedly. You're right. We were going there thinking, happy to get a goal. Just don't disgrace ourselves. Then, Russia was one of the best performances I've ever seen by a Wales team. Northern Ireland, we scrapped through. And Belgium was just unbelievably good. And I remember my daughter putting on Facebook saying, my dad says he doesn't want to miss birthdays or whatever, but we all really know he wants to stay out there. And she was spot on. So, yeah, and it turns out the semi-final where we lost was on my birthday. So it was quite something. But that whole adventure, I'll never forget Bordeaux, the first game, because I stood there for the anthem and I thought, wow, 30,000 Welsh people in a foreign stadium at a major tournament finals. It was more than the stuff of dreams. And I still think back memorably. And I've been downloading some photos today of that 2016 tournament. And it was just the most magical, unforgettable trip. And going back to Sam Vokes, he was saying, actually, Rob, he said the media, we got so close to the players in that 6 weeks or whatever. He said, you actually lived it with us. And it was so good. The FAW did everything right. Chris Coleman was just a joy. All the players were great to deal with. And it brought everlasting memories. And I know that goes for others who were there for one game or all the games, It was, you're not a fan with a microphone, but, on those sort of days you are.
I mean, I got to be honest, Rob, if I was commentating on those games and the Welsh national anthem was playing, especially that first game, I think I'd have been commentating through tears. It was such an emotional, it felt like every game was an emotional roller coaster. One thing which I found really interesting, what you said, was about the Russia game. So yeah, I regard the Belgium game probably as one of my greatest nights, like as a fan watching football. It was just such an unbelievable evening. But I do tend to agree with you. That Russia performance was just a simply sensational performance by the team. But what separates the two in terms of why do you sort of lean towards that Russia game being such a good performance?
Because we were dominant. I mean, you couldn't say we were dominant against Belgium. We deserved to win because the way we came back. And this, because they scored an unbelievably good goal. And let's face it, every Welsh fan there, I would venture, thought this could be a long night. But actually, the way Wales came back and we were worthy winners. So you might say, well, the opposition was much better. But for actual dominant Welsh performance, that is up there with the very best I've seen in my time of watching Wales. I would add probably Croatia recently at the Cardiff City Stadium, where I thought that was a terrific performance. There aren't many where we had total domination, but there everything worked well. Maybe Turkey and Azerbaijan as well in that Euros, when Conor Roberts scored really late on. Ramsey, and I think the common denominator was often Aaron Ramsey. I always said Wales could win games without playing well because of Gareth Bale, but for Wales to play well, they needed Aaron Ramsey. Now, that's not quite the way now, but for a long time, I think Aaron Ramsey was just often the difference, and Bale would win games for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to ask you about Aaron Ramsey because whilst he was out this year with an injury, or this season, sorry, I saw a few people sort of questioning, can he still do it and things like this on social media or pundits. And I was astounded by it because particularly in 2016 for Wales, I thought he was the one that we missed all the time. If he didn't play, we were never the same team. And of course, there was others. Gareth Bale, of course, takes the headlines. But, people like Ben Davies and Neil Taylor, and, they were massive for that squad. But for me, I say quite often, and I like to remind people of it because I think it's one of my few opinions that I'm very, very wholeheartedly, I won't budge on, is that if Aaron Ramsey didn't have the leg break that he has, he goes on and becomes one of the top 3 midfielders in Europe for, throughout the peak of his career, because I believe he's that talented. And he's obviously shown that at the highest of levels. It's just unfortunate that following that serious injury, he's kind of picked up a lot of muscular injuries in the aftermath. Do you go along with my assessment of the qualities of Aaron Ramsey, or am I overselling it?
No, you don't have to sell anything to me about Aaron Ramsey. He's been one of my favourite players. He continues to be. You'd have to say even 45 minutes on Saturday or whatever it was. Now that was the championship, so you're not comparing apples. You're almost comparing apples with pears. I'll quote Kevin Ratcliffe again. He said when he played, what they lacked, and I agree with him on this, what they lacked is a number 10. Do you know the number of times Wales in the past years, during the time of Mark Hughes, of Kevin Ratcliffe, they lacked a 10, a creative 10. They had the Barry Horns, the destroyers. They had the Peter Nicklases. That Terry Oth could destroy a midfield when he was on form, and because he was, he was that sort of player. But they lacked a number 10 with the ingenuity and the guile of Aaron Ramsey. And Kevin Ratcliffe always said that. And they always suffered against the likes of Haji, of Shifo, of Mateus, the number 10s who could run a game. On his day, Aaron Ramsey was the peer of a lot of those great midfield players. You don't go to Arsenal and play the number of times he did, win what he did. You don't go to the Juventus and win a Serie A, without being quality. And that's what he was, and Wales benefited. And I still say no. I don't need to remind you, sir. It was Ramsey and Ben Davies missing for that semi-final. Who knows what might have happened? I know I wouldn't have been watching the final in a Greek island if possibly Ramsey and Davies had played.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I think that's the one, isn't it? Straight away in the comments, on the live comments now, there's people saying if Ramsey wasn't banned, it's one of those sliding doors moments almost. But it kind of is what it is. But it's interesting. I completely agree with what you would say. Well, Kevin Ratcliffe said about that number 10, because we had like Mark Pembridge, all the players that you mentioned, and we always had good forwards, but we never quite had that person to knit it all together. You could have Giggs, you could have Rush, Hughes, Bellamy, all these, Hearts and up front, but it was that one player who just knits it all together.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, isn't it? Just
he's a maestro. He's a maestro.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't speak to you, Rob, without asking you about really the man who spearheaded and started the revolution of Welsh football. Obviously John Toshak brought in some of the youngsters, but it was obviously Gary Speed who took that on and really changed the way Welsh football viewed itself, I think, in terms of the professionalism off the field, playing the youngsters, the way we went about playing football, the way we conducted ourselves overall. It felt like there was a big change. What's some of your sort of best memories of Gary, if you don't mind sharing?
There's plenty. First of all, he was a lovely fella. There used to be a time where we'd travel with the team and they'd made a muck-up on the seats. And so a couple of the Welsh players had to sit among the media, which was not normal at all. And Gary Speed was one of them. And he saw myself and Tommy Morgan, who used to summarise for Radio Cymru. He said, I'll go sit with Rob and Tommy. which was the mark of the man as far as I was concerned, because some players would run a mile from sitting next to a journo. But we talked a bit of football, but not much. It was more about guitars and stuff like that. And then there was another moment where, when they were in America, and I thought had gone on the trip. I thought he pulled out the trip with a back injury. So they said to me in the office the Friday afternoon, "Oh, give Gary a ring, see if he can do something looking ahead to the game." And I did ring him, and he said, "Rob, do you know what time it is here?" And I said, "Well, it's whatever time it was with me." I said, "You're over here, aren't you?" "No," he said, "I've come away with the squad." But he said, "Ring me back in a couple of hours and I'll do something with you." That was how good he was. And as a player, what a brilliant player. Obviously won. There was football before the Premier League. Obviously won the last Division 1 title in that brilliant Leeds midfield. Great footballer. And this sums him up to me. The first, I'm pretty certain one of his first games was like a nations, what do they call it? Carling Nations competition in the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland Republic. So we lost anyway. I'm pretty sure it was his first game. I'd have to check that. Yes. We lost. And I was stood in the airport and I was looking a bit glum. And he said, "What's up, Rob?" And I said, "Getting used to this now, just going on trips and losing, and it's just getting a bit fed up." And he gave me the 5-minute pep talk of my life, saying, "You've got to get out of this, because give us time, we'll do this, we'll do that." And he had me bouncing by the end. I want to get out and play as I go on the plane. And of course, I can't help thinking, but I remember the 4-1 win over Norway, and the last interview I did with him, which was about 2 weeks before the news came through. And that's a day I'll never forget, because I was in the shower. I was just getting up, actually, and I had a phone call to say, "Rob, sit down. I got some really bad news. Gary Speed has passed away." We didn't know exactly what it was then. And I didn't wait. I got in the shower, got dressed, said to the kids, "I'm off to work. I don't really know what time I'm going to be home." And we did a phone-in special that afternoon, just about Gary Speed. Howard Wilkinson was on there. Rob Earnshaw, really emotional, was on there. And I sensed, it was one of those stories, Simon, where for maybe 2 weeks you thought of absolutely nothing else. It obsesses I know I'm a journalist, so I'm detached. I'm not, it's not me who's suffering, although we all suffered the heartbreak of Gary Speed. But it was the same with Salah. For 2-3 weeks, thought about nothing else. And in a happier way, going to the Ryder Cup in the Celtic Manor. Anything could have happened in the world outside, but all I was obsessed with. And the Gary Speed thing was one of those, so tragic. But then it showed so much how much he was loved, because I went to Newcastle, I went to Leeds. He was a huge loss. But you're right, he contributed. I do think John Toshak's role is probably still underplayed. I think Mark Hughes made a big difference as well. Gary Speed and Chris Coleman will tell you. Chris Coleman had the hardest job, I think, of any Wales manager, taking over from Gary Speed, a guy he used to room with, a mate of his. And I know he checked with Roger Speed and Gary's mother before he even considered going for the Wales job. And what a job he made of it. So brilliant.
Yes, it was something which obviously it not only shocked everyone, but I think, like you say, you just couldn't think of anything else for such a long time afterwards. It was unbelievable, the outpouring of emotion around that time. So Rob, just before I do let you go, this is the Cardiff City hour.
I was going to say, you're going to ask me about Cardiff City.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, obviously you've covered so many different generations, I guess, or eras of Cardiff City, from the rebrand, FA Cup final, Carling Cup final. What's some of your fondest memories covering Cardiff, and how difficult was it to cover, things like the rebrand where there's so much anger?
Yeah. Well, I started covering Cardiff City in '87, believe it or not. That's when I started on the Echo. And Cardiff got promoted the first year I was covering them. Under Frank Burrows, who remains one of my favourite managers of all time. And times were different then, Simon. I could ring the manager every morning. That doesn't happen anymore. So I've seen a lot of lows with Cardiff City. I've seen highs as well, the two promotions to the Premier League, the promotion of the Championship that day because I was privileged to watch every final that weekend. All the finals were at the Millennium Stadium. Cardiff was the Sunday. It was Bournemouth Lincoln on the Saturday, and I was doing updates from there. And then on the Monday, it was the Nathan Blake game, Wolves against Sheffield United, when Nathan battered poor on Rob Page, and Wolves got promoted. So under Dave Jones, as it turned out, who later turned up at Cardiff. The rebrand was really awkward and really difficult, and it was ill-conceived. It was it's something shouldn't happen at a football to a football club, no matter who you support. I don't think you can you can't, to my mind, you can't change football clubs. You can have more than one, because if you supported a club in the lower divisions, then you often had a Premier League club when I was growing up, or a Division 1 club as it was when I was growing up. So I don't think that's a problem. But the rebrand really did divide the support. I've often wondered what would have happened had Cardiff done really well in the Premier League, as Redbirds, as people called them. But for some, Anis Abraham being one of them, that was a point of, I won't say no return, because people like Anis still go, but you know what I mean. It was a non-negotiable that should happen. So yeah, I mean, I've seen. Put it this way: it's never been dull covering Cardiff City. I was banned for a whole season. Yeah. That was when Tony Clemmer was the chairman, although it ended up after that. Tony Clemmer and I got on really well after that, but he did ban me, and the ban was lifted. I used to have to go in disguise to Ninian Park to do games for the Echo, and then the ban was lifted when Rick Wright walked in and brought the success that he did in his own inimitable style. So I've seen some unbelievable sights at Cardiff City, and been to some unbelievable games and made some really good friends there as well. And I can't talk about Cardiff City without, I got really friendly with Nathan Blake, and people say to me, I'll never forget the night I heard that Peter Whittingham had passed away, because Wits brought so much joy. Again, I'll borrow a summarizer's phrase. Jason Perry summed it up. He said, nobody made you smile more than Peter Whittingham in a game, because he would do things and you just go, wow, and just, smile. A bit like Rambo, a lot like Rambo, in fact. Might not be a match winner every game, but he'd do something that would make you smile and light up a game. And he also had a great personality as well.
Genius, I think, is the word, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's,
genius. Yeah,
genius.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. And when people ask, who's the best Championship player you've ever seen? I'd have to say Wits is up there, definitely. But Adil Tarat maybe comes up there with him. But I think that goes for a lot of clubs. They would say that fans of a lot of Championship clubs, being honest, all got their own favourites at clubs. But Peter Whittingham would be in, I would think, most Championship, long-serving Championship fans' best 5-6 players of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, generally speaking, when you see like those types of polls on social media, like the greatest Championship player of all time, Peter Whittingham is always, he's always in the top two.
He's in there, really. Yeah, he's in there.
I think that speaks for the quality of the footballer, but also the quality of the man. I had the pleasure of speaking to him once, in passing, but I never had the pleasure of, having a sit down with him or anything like that, unfortunately. But the people I'm friends with just say he's amazing. Go on.
Let's wrap up the two. Aaron Ramsey scored against Chase Town in the FA Cup. You remember that? That run to the final in 2008. And I think I might have interviewed Aaron that day. He wasn't a great talker there. Craigie, he was only 16 or whatever he was. Yeah. And Wits walked out, and so I waited for Wits and talked about the game, talked about the win. And I said, "What about Aaron Ramsey?" And he went, "Whew." And I said, "Wits, you're going to have to say more than that because I need something from you about him." So, yeah, he was just a lovely guy. They're both really good. They were both really good to deal with, and Rambo still is. And everybody, Wits deserves what he's got in the stadium.
Absolutely, 100%. Last question then, Rob.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind we've got the assistant manager stroke first team coach ready to go in a minute. Do you think Cardiff City will stay up this year?
Yeah, I think they just will. I think I'm a big fan of Darren Purse, by the way. So hello, Darren, if you're listening. And a really good captain at Cardiff City when he was a player. Yeah, I think they got enough to stay up. I think what might keep them up is I think they've had a really good January. Now, I hesitate to say that because I thought they did okay. I thought they were quite shrewd in the summer, but obviously the biggest signing didn't work out at all. But Salek has come in and has done what you want him to do. And he could even say to himself, well, I've got 2 points already because of the late goals on Saturday and at Millwall. And I think that I like the look of Alves on the left-hand side as well. And I like the look of the Manver in midfield. So I think they've done well in the transfer window. And I think a mark of a good coach, I'll include Darren in this as well, is how they improve players. And I think the likes of Cian Ashford has improved this season. So, and hopefully Ruben, who I'm a huge fan of, is coming back into his own as well. And they're starting to get goals. It may be touch and go, but I do think they should have just enough.
So Darren just missed your compliments of him. So I'll tell him all. I'll tell him all the bad words you said about him now. No, he's just come in. Rob, I honestly could sit and I could speak to you for hours and hours and hours. I appreciate you giving me your time this evening.
No worries.
And I'm sure we'll do it again soon, one day, hopefully. But thank you very much, and congratulations on an incredible career as the voice of Welsh football, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
So, guys, we'll be back in just a second as we will be speaking to Cardiff City's first team coach, Darren Purse.
You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Welcome back. This is Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport. We will be followed straight away at 8 o'clock by the Welsh Football Hour. But with no further ado, I'm delighted to be joined by Cardiff City's first team coach and former captain, Mr. Darren Purse. How are you, mate?
Not too bad. So are you okay, mate?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Thank you for giving me your time and popping in, mate. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. It's been an interesting season for you, mate. You've been a bit everywhere, doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that. But first and foremost, are you enjoying it?
Totally different roles. Two totally different roles. As under-21 manager, it's all about recruitment, sort of finding the next golden nugget, the next diamond to come through. Coaching, a lot of individual coaching, and development. You'll take a defeat for the development of a young player coming through. Whereas now it's about getting 3 points. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Listen, there's an element of coaching that goes on during the week, especially with the younger players that we've got in the squad. Obviously, trying to improve them, trying to make them better, working on what their sort of so-called weaknesses are. But it's two totally different roles. But I've enjoyed both of them. But if you was giving me the choice, I'd take the first team stuff all day.
Absolutely, and I think it's been a really interesting season. Some ups and some downs. Are you missing that role with the under-21s? I know you say, like, obviously you want to be working first team football. I understand that, but obviously you had a big role alongside Gavin Chesterfield and others in bringing through, a lot of these youngsters who are pushing now for first team football. Do you miss that side of it?
I do miss it. It's nice. I still get to see all the under-21 players every day. Speak to Blocks, who's doing an amazing job at the minute, and all the sort of under-21 staff, sort of keeping it going. So I do miss it, but like I said, I think what under-21 football can't give you is that Saturday afternoon at 3:00, playing for 3 points, pitting yourself up against the people that are in the dugout next to you. Because sometimes there's always a little bit of an agenda at times with the under-21s. There's the long-term goals rather than there and now, but. That's the big thing that I'm really enjoying about the first team stuff. And like I said, long may it continue. If we can pick up a couple of results between now and the end of the season, we'll be looking good and hopefully build from there.
Indeed, mate. And I thought the signings, the signings which you have been brought in the summer and in January, generally look pretty good and it's helping the team. A lot of young players. But I'm kind of interested in the insight that you can give me in terms of how difficult it is for managers like Omar Risa, for coaches like yourself, who filling in like on an interim basis initially and kind of short-term deals. How difficult is that compared to if you've got like a longer-term plan in place?
It is difficult, because you're always looking over your shoulder a little bit. You don't know what's around the corner, but I think as a coaching staff and as obviously and the gaffer as he is, he's prepping and planning as if he's going to be in it for the long haul, and I think that's the only way you can look at it. You're planning and trying to win the next game, but there's a long-term goal, a long-term sort of project that the football club is at this moment in time. It's exciting when you look at sort of the players that we're getting in and the young players getting in, people like Alex Robertson. Yusuf, I think, has hit the ground running since he's come in with the goals he scored. He scored some vital goals recently. I think you look at Siva. I think he's really settled into midfield straight away. So there's a lot of excitement and a lot to look forward to, I think, around the football club. But the here and now is we need to get 3 points every Saturday between now and the end of the season to push ourselves away from that relegation zone and keep us out of that bottom three.
Indeed, mate. So I had a question sent in by someone you might know. I'm not sure. Mr. Omar Risa. He said, question for Percy. Who's the best at the crossbar challenge out of all the staff?
Hey, he needs to have a look at himself, the gaffer, at the minute, because he's not in a good... He hadn't lost for, I would say, a good 12, 14 weeks. And then he's the last couple he's struggled with. So, yeah, he's... to be fair, we're all pretty even. What we usually do, just as before the boys even come down, once we've settled the session up, we'll have a little crossbar challenge for a coffee on an away game or something like that. It's just a bit of fun amongst the staff. And, yeah, I think it's pretty even, Stevens. Rammers is pretty decent at it. He shanks a few, but ends up hitting it pretty lucky, So myself and Shozza have got a bit of culture about us for centre halves, but no, it's a good little game, and I think that sort of adds to sort of the cohesion we've got as a staff. Ward is another one who's come in as goalkeeper coach, quite fresh into it, but obviously knows the football club like the back of his hand from playing here. But I think it helps as a group that we are quite close knit. We can all have our say, which I think is massive. But at the end of the day, it's the manager, the gaffer, who's got the final say. And once he makes that, we back him 100%, and it's working quite well so far.
Yeah, I think in fairness, the one thing that you could see almost immediately from when Omar Risa came in, and then obviously you joined the first team group as well, was the morale and the togetherness within the group is there. Like, you can see it much more clearly. how important to morale? Like, obviously, the Christmas period was very difficult. You had the Leeds game recently, which is difficult. So how important is it in January to get in a couple of new players? Because that, I would imagine, gives the dressing room a lift. You look at young Alves, he's like super exciting. It's sort of player which gets you off your feet when you're watching football. Mansverk looks like someone who's probably, could be playing for Ajax in the not too distant future. Salic, like you said, has hit the ground running. Do they help with the morale when those lads come in?
I think you need it. I think it shows that obviously the owner's backing the manager, because obviously the money he's putting in his pocket to go and sign the players. So I think that's always a massive positive. I mean, the big thing I can say about the Gaff, he's very positive. I think the conversations he has with players on a daily basis is unbelievable. The work that goes into it. He deserves so much credit for what he does away from the training pitch, away from the games. I think he really cares about the players that he's got and the players that are fighting for him, and I think that's why they are, because they know that he cares about them, and it shows. But so much work goes into that on a daily basis from the gaffer. He's always pulling players for one-on-one chats, always sort of trying to find out how they're feeling, how they are on a daily basis. He's been top class at that.
And I think that's obviously so important in terms of the man management side of it, but I think it's even more important when you've got young players in the squad. Particularly, I think it's Alves' first loan, I think, isn't it? So that's a big step for him. When you've got these young players coming through, it's important that they get that sort of what's the word, like that time, I guess, with the manager, and they feel that they've got someone to turn to. Have you been surprised by how well some of the young players have sort of stepped up this year, or with the players who've come in, whether it be in the cup games and stuff like that, rotation? Obviously, they've done very well. I think by and large, all of them have performed to a pretty high level and knocking on the door for the first team. Has that surprised you, or is that something that you kind of expected due to their qualities?
It doesn't surprise me, because we see them on a daily basis. We see their quality in training, so we see it, and it's just about us. Our job is to try and hone what they're doing in training and let them go and be extravagant, and let them go and sort of enjoy themselves on a Saturday afternoon. Sometimes it's tough because the pressure of playing in front of crowds, especially young players, especially the pressure of playing in front of crowds that some of them haven't ever played in front of. That's always a tough one. But as long as we can give them the tools that they can go and express themselves on a Saturday afternoon, I think that's what we're there for, is to give them that opportunity, and they can then go and express themselves when they get given the chance.
Yeah, and I guess you're playing in high pressure situations at the moment, and the championship is high pressure anyway. But obviously, whilst we're within reach of that relegation zone, there's a lot of pressure which comes with the games. There's a lot of pressure at Cardiff anyway. Go on.
But that's part of the boys' learning curve, isn't it? Is playing in front of that pressure. I think if you look at the Cardiff fans and how they are, if you give them their all, they'll back you 100%. I look at some of the. I remember Watford away. We was on a run, and probably I think we'd lost. Oh, we hadn't won for 8 games, wasn't it? And we went to Watford away, and you could sense that we had half a chance of nicking the game, just because they were so positive behind the goal, even before the game during the warm up. You could sense it, and the players feel off that. When there is that little bit of negativity of time, you can understand why that is, because the position we're in. When there is that negativity at times, it does play on the players' minds a little bit, especially some of the younger ones. So, anytime they can get behind us, the support they give us, I think it'll only reap dividends as the season progresses.
Yeah, and I mean, on the fans getting behind the team and stuff like that, atmosphere. That's what South Wales Derby recently was like a real bumping atmosphere, wasn't it? The ground was bouncing, and I think it's been a long time since I've seen it like that. That's got to be special for you as coaches, manager, players to play in those atmospheres is what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, to be involved in them is brilliant. You know, I've probably missed out on it over the last few years. You don't quite get that feel when you're sort of playing in under 21 local derbies, but yeah, it was an awesome atmosphere. I think even like Saturday when we were 1-0 down, you could see we were pushing to get the equaliser. Once we've equalised, there was only one team that were possibly going to go and get the 3 points, and that was us. You know, the gaffer's very positive in the way he wants to play. I don't think there was anybody sort of within the group that said, let's settle for a point, we're happy with a point. We wanted to go and get all 3, and we were close to doing that. So that positive energy from the fans, from the players, from the coaching staff is only going to help us going forward in the running, mate.
For sure, mate. Just before I let you go, Darren, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things. On the manager, like, he's clearly very important to the group in terms of, you can, like you say, he sees there's a good atmosphere around there, that he's got a good relationship. And you've mentioned, you know, some of the things like the relationships and the way you're able to get your ideas across and stuff like that. Was he a big miss when he was banned from the touchline, do you think?
I think it was. I think if you look at him on the sideline, I think the players look for him for information. I think they look at him for just that sort of sense of togetherness a little bit, you know. So I think he was a big miss. Whether or not he would have affected the 7-0 at Leeds, I'm sure he would have done at some point. I think it was hard for himself and Shoza being on the phone together. You know, trying to get your point across is tough when you're not actually on the side and in this. You're in the fight when you're there. You know, you can feel the energy from what's going on. So I think it was a big miss. It was good to have him back against Bristol City. You know, and these, and hopefully, sort of over this running, he'll be a. Well, he's the gaffer. You know, I think he's been top class, and I think he'll be a pivotal part of getting this group over the line, and a pivotal part of building over the next year or two. Because I think that the plans that he's got in place and where he wants to take the football club are they're only positive, and we're really looking forward to where it goes.
Yeah, one of the things that's really impressed me actually since he's come in is that he's for a young manager, he's very adaptable tactically. You know, we've seen a few different shapes and formations within the team, you know, within a game, but you know, from game to game, different situations, different oppositions. How is that for the group? Like, with quite a few young players, do they find it easy to adapt to, you know, to the different systems and the different tactics?
I think they find it easy to adapt because the work that goes into it, you know, when you're leading into games Thursday, Fridays are sort of real tactical days. The work that goes into it, that they get the information, they get what they need from the gaffer, from the coaches when we're on the sides, you know. So I think from that point of view, they get everything that they need, and if they have got any questions, it's quite open that they can ask them. If they don't think something's right, they'll speak their mind, you know. So from that point of view, I think they've got a platform to speak and do what they and sort of have that sort of voice. So I think that's key. I think if you look at the Bristol City away game, obviously there was a little. I think there was a few murmurings of why did we change our shape? We were being, but then I think you look at games like, I think Coventry away, we changed shape halfway through the game, you know, to see it out and things like that. We've done it in a positive way on a number of occasions, and at times you don't get the plaudits when it goes right. You only get people that sort of want to have a little pop when it doesn't quite go right. So we've done it a few times this year, and it's worked really well. West Brom was another one, sort of when you're sort of hanging in there and you need that point, you change your shape a little bit and you walk away with your point. So they're the positives to take from everything. But I think the way and the work that goes in behind the scenes, I mean, that's why the players are so adaptable with everything, because they get all the information they need, and it's a real positive atmosphere.
Yeah, I guess the young players, as they come up through all the different development teams, they play a lot of different positions, I think, don't they? I mean, look at Joel Colwell's played lots of different positions in his loan spell. So I guess that helps with adapting as well when it comes to that. Yeah,
it does, especially when you've got players like Perry and G, who can play really well at fullback, but can play at the right side of a free really well, you know. Joel Bagan's another one, quite adaptable in what he can do. Callum O'Dowd can play as a left back, left wing back, or as a left wing. So you've got players in the squad that can play the different positions. So from that point of view, it'd be silly not to use them. And when we have got the opportunity to change shape for certain situations. So yeah, listen, it's all good. It's going really well, and long may it continue.
Indeed, mate. Lastly, one of your former centre-back partners, I welcome him back to Cardiff in April, in Glenn Loovens. Tell me a little bit about your relationship on and off the pitch with that.
I taught him everything he knows. That's what I'm saying. I'm taking all credit for that. He's a great lad, mate. So really good. Sometimes, sort of, I think when sort of Scandinavian players and players from abroad come over, they don't fit into the culture. Sometimes Glenn fitted into the English culture really well. Really wanted to embrace sort of Wales, and I got so much time for him. He's such a great fellow, and I can't wait for him to come over. And love playing alongside him. I think we complemented each other quite well in the early days when he was sort of that pace and sort of quite aggressive. Us, you just let him go and edit and crack on and sort of sweep up behind him. But he's really good lad, and really looking forward to him coming back over, mate.
Yeah, me and you both, mate. He's really funny. When I spoke, I spoke to him on the phone a few times now, and he's a funny guy. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a great weekend. It's going to be real nice. And he hasn't been back to Cardiff in a long time, and he doesn't do a lot of podcasts and media and live events. So he's going to have stories to share, his careers to talk about. It's going to be a real good weekend that I'm very much looking forward to. Darren, mate, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you ever so much. I'm sure we'll see you again soon, mate, but best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks for flipping it for me as well, mate. Sorry.
You're all right, mate. You're all right. Anything for you, Come on.
Cheers, mate.
You take care. I'll see you soon.
Good one, pal. Bye,
and
mate.
You, buddy. Cheers, mate. Darren Purse, Cardiff City first team coach. I appreciate there's loads of questions and stuff in the chat. We are under a time constraint as we're on the radio. But look, it's the Welsh Football Hour coming up next. We've got lots and lots still to come. We'll talk about Cardiff City a little bit more as well, because they are, in fact, a Welsh football club. But stay with us for hour 2 in just a minute.
The home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sport. You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Welsh Football Hour here on Cymru Sport. We have lots to come up. We have a defender from Carlyellaway FC, where he comes on to discuss their Welsh Cup quarter-final from the weekend, among other things. This is where we get super interactive. You can talk about anything Welsh football related. Hit me up in the comments, ask your questions, and we will discuss it. Whether it's the EFL clubs, the national team, the JD Cymru, grassroots, whatever it may be, Welsh football is the subject. So let's talk about it. So there, very interesting first hour to the show there. We had, first and foremost, the voice of Welsh football, Mr. Rob Phillips. And he'll be a massive miss to Welsh football coverage in the future, because he is literally the voice of Welsh football. He's such an interesting chap, such a lovely chap, and it was a great pleasure for me to chat and speak to him. And then obviously the privilege of having Cardiff's current first team coach in Darren Purse. Got a lot of time for Darren, and it's a difficult one, but I'm very much looking forward to having a chat and speaking with more people soon. We have new guests every week, So, you never know who might turn up next week. Could be anyone. Could be Glenn Hoddle. Who knows? But no, it's always interesting. So on Cardiff City, I would like to discuss a few little things which sort of come up. Like the young players that we've got coming through at the moment is really exciting. We've almost got a team going, and it's exciting to see, because there's almost a team of under 25s there ready to play, pushing at the door, especially if you look at those players that are kind of pushing or out on loan. So you've obviously got Turner on the bench as the goalkeeper. You've got Giles at left back. You've got Pacquiao, who's currently injured at right back. You could play Darland and Fish, both under 21. But you've also got Dylan Lawler, captain of the 21s at the age of 18. Then you've got Joel Colwell out on loan, doing exceptionally well. Alex Robertson, 21. You've got Ruben Colwell, 22. Tanner, I think, is early 20s. Salic, early 20s. Simic, early 20s. It's an exciting time. And that's not even mentioning some of the 21s in the attacking areas who are coming through. Reindorf, who's out on loan. It's a really, really interesting time for Cardiff. Obviously, they have some players out of contract at the end of this season. So they have an opportunity maybe to rotate the squad a little bit, maybe elevate some of those youngsters to the first team. And that's what it's about. I think ultimately for anyone's club, no matter who you support, if you can bring through homegrown players who've got the quality to play in the first team, that's every fan's dream, And I think historically, whether it's Swansea, Newport, Cardiff, whoever, any level, any club, when you bring through those kids, not only is it exciting, but you're proud and you embrace it and you give them a bit of patience and you give them a bit of time. But usually you get one, maybe two who come through and play. Cardiff have this unique situation where they might end up with a bit of a group coming through. Now, will they all make it? Who knows? We're not quite sure if they will all make it. Some will, some won't, I'm sure. And some will move on to pastures new. But and it's of course a big if Cardiff can elevate that group of players, that is such a positive and that is such an exciting thing. And I know so often there's doom and gloom where it's been a difficult season, the results haven't been great. We're in a relegation battle, whether we should be or not. It's nice sometimes. Just focus on the positives, And that's coming from me, Mr. Grumpy, like very pessimistic. But I think the young players give Cardiff City fans something to cling on to, something to hope for, something to look forward to in the future. I was interested, and I meant to ask the chat at the time and the people watching and listening around Wales when we spoke to Rob Phillips, and he was talking about his sort of favourite memory. And in my opinion, the memory which he said about Sam Vokes' goal is probably the most iconic of his commentary. But do any of you have a different Rob Phillips memory of his commentary that sticks out in your mind? It's really interesting, because I think Rob Phillips is such a pro. Like, he's such a good commentator, journalist. I think he's the best in his game. And he'll be, as I said, he'll be a very big miss. But it's one of those, like, who steps into his place? Obviously, he does the Call Rob show on a Saturday after the games. He commentates on Wales and Cardiff and Newport and Swansea and all these different games. He does some writing and things like that. It's interesting who will be his replacement, if you like, as the commentator. I guess we shall see. As I mentioned, we've got Ely Rangers defender Jack Turner coming on in. Kyra Ely FC defender Jack Turner coming on in just a minute. And one thing we've been doing over this past, few weeks since we launched the show is in the Welsh Football Hour, we've tried to focus on not just the EFL clubs, not just the national team. We want to talk about Welsh League football. We want to elevate it. We want to discuss it. We want to talk to the commentators of these games. We want to talk to the players. We had the privilege last week of speaking to Peter Bradbury ahead of the Kyra Ely game. And we'll talk to Jack about how that game went on the weekend in the Welsh Cup quarter-final. It was an absolutely massive game for the football club, and something which a lot of those fans of the football club and players, they'll hold that in their heart for a very long time, no matter what the result was, no matter how it went. Because they financially they are just on a different level to some of the other clubs within that Welsh League system. It's a fact of life. But what we can do is that those players, hopefully, if they can progress and play well at Carlyellaway, they can go on and go across and look. They can go and progress. To other Welsh League teams, or even above that by performing. And I think it's great. I think the Welsh League system is very underrated in terms of the quality of football that you see. The games, the commentary, the coverage of it is underrated, and I would like to see it get more eyes on it. And if we can do that by talking about it during the Welsh Football Hour, then that's what we will do. But let's go to some of the comments for this evening. We'll see what the people are saying. A lot of love for Darren Purse, a lot of love for Rob Phillips in the chat. I just noticed that Gary Roberts says there, respect to Rob, to have grassroots section on his Call Rob show highlights a different club every week. It shows how much passion is out there for the game. Absolutely, Gary. And that's another thing which I would like to bring into this Welsh Football Hour is talk grassroots. I have plans. We're going to get a grassroots referee on in the coming weeks. Hear some of the stories, the good and the bad, about that, because I think it's an almost impossible job, grassroots refereeing, and I've seen it firsthand. It's almost impossible. You can't please everyone. It's very difficult, and you get a lot of stick. You get a lot of shouting. You get a lot of abuse in some cases. It's a thankless job. But I will say the best referees that we have had at grassroots level this year, we've had a couple of really young lads, like really young, sort of 17, 18, refereeing again. I think we've had 2 or 3 games by those refs, and the way they dealt with the players, the parents, the coaches, I cannot speak highly enough of them. They were absolutely outstanding, and that is encouraging that you've got young referees coming through at grassroots level that hopefully they'll progress and start to referee men's football. They'll referee Welsh League. They'll referee, EFL, non-league, whatever it may be, because I really believe that we need that with the clubs. We need that from grassroots to the very top of the game to improve the refereeing standards. I look at the Premier League, which I just don't enjoy watching as much as I used to these days. The level of refereeing this last couple of years, it just hasn't been the same as previous years, hasn't been up to that same standard. So when I see grassroots referees doing such a good job, young guys as well, that is, full respect to them. However, in just a second, we'll be talking to Carlyellaway defender Jack Turner, and we'll be back in just a second.
The home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sport. The home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sport.
Welcome back. I'm delighted to be joined by Carlyellaway defender, Mr. Jack Turner. How are you, Jack? You okay, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Oh, let me just turn you up a bit. Say again, sorry, mate.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Good. So, an interesting weekend for you this weekend?
Yeah. Quite the event. It was good to see loads of people turn out down Carlyellaway. Unfortunately, didn't get the result we wanted, but no, it was a great day all round for the community and the club.
How many people came down in the end? I was going to go down there myself, but I couldn't in the end, and I was really disappointed. I saw Mr. Bellamy was there.
He was, yeah. Jason Mohammed was down there as well. Noel Mooney was down there. So there was a few. I'm not too sure on the actual attendance figures. I think maybe 500-600 went down, which was
that's incredible.
Which was good for obviously the Cymru Leagues. Yeah, it's been a great week really for the club.
Yeah, and I saw that you've got as a club, you've got a bit of coverage on Scorio and their YouTube and their social media, and that can only help things. But talk to us first of all. Talk to us a bit about you, about the game, mate, and how it went. Just talk us through the game a little bit.
Yeah, so in fairness, we started strong. I think we had 2 really good chances in the first maybe 5-10 minutes. Started really well, started really bright. Probably the better side for the first half an hour. And then they've just got that bit of quality in the final third. I don't think we took our chances early on. And Rhys, the winger at Connors Quay, he's been great this season. He's cut inside and bent one in from about 25 yards, edge of the box. So, after that, it was a bit of they started maybe to get a bit on top till half time. But then, I think we come out strong again, and then got a sucker punch, a bit of a scrappy goal at a corner or set piece, I think it was. When you're 2-0 down, especially on the day the pitch wasn't great. It was a bit of a slog, and they took control then. They looked a bit comfortable. We had a chance maybe last 10 minutes to make it a bit interesting, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's football, isn't it? We've all played it, watched it, etc. It's one of them in it where if you don't take your chances when you get them, it's so often the way that you get caught by a set piece or a mistake or something. It feels like the story of the story of my son's team's season this year. To be honest with you, we seem to have missed a load of chances, and then in the first 20 minutes, and then get caught on the break.
That's football at all levels, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those, mate. But tell me a bit about you and how you came to be at Carlyellaway. Where did you start, etc.?
Yeah, so started off at Bristol City. I was there from about the age of 10 till 18, 19. So I was there a while, and then got released from Bristol City. Plays a bit for Bath City and Merthyr Town the next season before then went to uni. So went to Loughborough Uni. As a great football team, that was really the draw for me to go to university. I wasn't a massive fan of going beforehand, but they had sort of like a full-time program in terms of football, and I could study as well. So that was really what got me to university. And then while I was up there, I signed for Kettering Town, and then COVID hit, and I moved to Stratford Town. So I played sort of that Conference North, Southern Central level up there. And then when I came back down to Cardiff from uni, spoke to Matt Davis, who's great down at Carlyellaway. I knew him a lot from sort of when I was at school. He sort of ran like the Cardiff schools. So knew him well from there, and just went down to train and loved it. Like I know a couple of the lads from school as well, so it was kind of like a good mix between playing with your pals and also playing at a decent level and wanting to win. I've loved it.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, you got the best of both worlds, haven't you? Get to play Welsh League football and also play with your mates. It's a win-win,
exactly.
Isn't it?
It's great. Yeah, it's brilliant.
So one of the questions in the comments is, as a player in the Welsh League, what do you feel could be done or what needs to be done to help the league sort of move on to the next level? Would it be, summer football for better pitches, access to training facilities, etc.? Like, where would you, as a player, where would you like to see it improved and how to take it forward?
I think you've got to try and find a way of getting more eyes on the league. I feel like, especially from playing in England, there's a lot more funding, there's a lot more money, and you can attract better players because of that. So you see the level be better. I mean, you probably look at the Welsh Prem now, and it's kind of, it can be hard to compare, but I'd say you've got your TNSs who could probably compete at your National League level, but then you've got the bottom of the Welsh Prem who are probably, I don't know, maybe a step 4, step 3, so there are a few leagues below the level in England. So there's a massive sort of discrepancy. I think as a player myself, I think, yeah, it's got to be better facilities. I mean, if you watch the game on Sunday, like, because of the weather we've had, the pitch was just in ruin. So it'd be great. Obviously, it's weather permitting a lot of the time, especially when you want to play on good grass pitches. But it'd be that funding probably, because I also know then it filters down then to grassroots level. Can you get more maybe like 4G pitches, for example, and then it's a chance to then rent out to maybe the grassroots level who, you know, are looking for a pitch who've had their games cancelled for the last month. So yeah, I think there needs to be a lot better facilities in the country to sort of develop and even just give people a chance of playing football, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my pet hates, actually, is it really frustrates me. There's a lot of, 4G pitches around Cardiff now. Like, there's loads there everywhere. And you see the games getting called off all the time in the league, for under 12s to under 16s, say, whereas league football is competitive football, and they get called off every week. And sometimes, particularly early in the season, they almost get called off as soon as it starts raining, just to protect the pitches, which I understand they've got to take that into account. But what happens is, I feel like they could utilize the 4G and the 3G pitches to get games done early in the season, whether that's playing, some midweek games and the weekend games. Is something which I think they need to look into, because I a few friends who live sort of at Manchester way, and they say like almost 90% of the pitches on men's grassroots is played on 4G these days. So like it feels like maybe we're a little bit behind in terms of how we're going about it with the weather and things like that, because we live in Wales, like it's going to rain all the time.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Like even the season before I joined Kyra, I mean, I went down for pre-season and they had maybe two weeks off. Maybe I think they had a run of like 10 games they had to play within the last 3 weeks of the season, and that's at a level where it's meant to be the championship for the Welsh pyramid. So like if it's happening at that level, like you can only imagine what it's like at grassroots level, especially if they're trying to, if you have got a grassroots team who's playing maybe on a Cymru South ground, for example, one weekend, like as soon as there's a bit of rain, they're going to call it off to protect it. So
of course,
then you're stopping people from playing, really. Then
and ultimately when it's the kids in it, you want the kids to be playing football and you want them to progress and enjoy it, but you got to get them playing. And I think it's finding ways to do that most effectively. With regards to going, just sort of flipping back to the Welsh League, is the discrepancy, from top to bottom in terms of the teams? Do you think? Okay, it's probably a bit of a difficult question to ask you, so feel free to tell me to move on. But like, is it purely a financial thing whereby the teams at the top just have the finances to pay more players, to have the facilities to do that? It does, like you see it at the top of the game, in the Premier League or wherever. Generally speaking, the teams with the most finances are able to get the best of everything, etc. And also that filters into the transfers and signings as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Obviously, finances come into it. I also think in terms of maybe viewership and how many people actually clubs get through the gate. If you compare that with the English pyramids, again, it's lacking. And look, that feeds into finances itself. So I think that they've got a problem with trying to get people engaged in the league, I think. Obviously, geographically, it doesn't help either. I mean, if for example, we went up next year and you're playing Bala Town on a Tuesday night, you've got lads having to take a day off work then.
Of course,
So it's, can you fund that? And are lads then willing to do that? Because they could probably then go and play over the bridge with less travel and probably getting the same amount of money. So they've got to find a way, I think, of engaging fans into come to watch the league. And then they do a great job with Scoria. Like, there's a lot of televised games in the Cymru Prem, but I feel like it can be a bit too focused on the Cymru Prem, and you've only got, at the minute, I think, is it 2 teams that go down. So you've got really a cluster of maybe 14, 15 teams that really dominate the Welsh Prem. And then you've got clubs like maybe Cairo, that's a bit more of a community club, can maybe draw in a bigger fan base than some of the Welsh Prem clubs. So they've got to find a way of maybe engaging the whole pyramid and also engaging fans to go and watch games.
Yeah, and I think I actually think one of the reasons why I have enjoyed sort of speaking to different people from the Welsh League setup, and I'm going to continue to do so over this past few weeks, is when I went to watch Cardiff Met play Taffswell a couple of years ago, because a friend of mine used to be a Cardiff City fan, and he kind of fell out of love with it, with the rebrand and stuff, started going to Cardiff Met, and he's like heavily involved with that now. And it just reminded me why I started going to watch Cardiff and enjoying the football and stuff. It just took me, it was a bit of a throwback to, like, it just didn't feel watered down, and I don't know what it is with
it's like camaraderie going.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's but it's something that I think they should focus on to engage people and to get people back in and watching, their local Welsh League club, whoever that may be. If you can get people through the gates, ultimately that's going to be the thing which helps to produce funding for the football clubs individually and also collectively, because I think if you can collectively get the crowds up, then you're more likely to get maybe some more televised games on Scoria or other entities to do so.
Yeah, definitely. And to be fair, I think the FAW are doing a lot of work at the minute. Obviously, you've got the rebrand of the Welsh Prem coming. And I think they are trying hard to make it better. I think it was a big kick in the teeth or a wake-up call with sort of the league coefficient sort of dropping with UEFA and so on. I think it really got highlighted in the past few seasons. And yeah, in fairness to them, they're trying things to make it better. So fingers crossed we can get that viewership up and yeah, it'll bring more people through the gate.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting. Like, I know some people have sort of mixed feelings on Noel Mooney, but I think he's a breath of fresh air in terms of what he wants to do with Welsh football. I've been, lucky enough to have conversations with him, and I think that, not every plan is gonna come to fruition. Not every plan is gonna work, but I think it's good that they're sort of at the top of the Welsh FA. You've got someone who genuinely cares about football from grassroots to the national team and wants to think outside the box to improve it.
I agree with you. I mean, you're not going to please everyone, but you can definitely see that he's trying things and he's trying to, engage viewership. I mean, as a football fan, majority, I love it. And you can sort of see the discrepancy between the rugby and the football now. It seems like it's flipped on its head. And yes. I think that's because the FAW are really engaging with fans. And yeah, they're trying things, but they're being very transparent about them. And they're trying to get feedback. Whereas you look at the rugby, I think I don't know where that's gone wrong, but they've sort of they're so disengaged with the fan base at the minute. So credit's due to Noel and the FAW at the minute, because I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and I think the more they engage clubs, but maybe my thing is, I said this a few years ago, is they probably don't need to engage with the greatest of respect, to TNS and these clubs. It's not against them as such, but maybe they're not the clubs that necessarily need to be engaged with by the FAW. It's the clubs lower down in the Cymru South, in the Cymru North, at the lower end of the Cymru League, because they're the teams who probably have thought about different ways that they can get additional funding and finances and facilities and all these different things, because they've got to think about it. Whereas, maybe the clubs at the top, they don't have to think about it as much, which means Do you see what I mean? Like it's engaging everyone.
I think that's maybe where the problem lies at the minute. Is on one hand, you're probably trying to push your TNSs, etc. For example, like TNS getting into Europe this year, it was great. It was great to highlight really the Welsh leagues, and they did really well. So I understand where they're trying to maybe push that, because it brings it more on a maybe global scale. But then lower down the pyramid, if you probably had a more competitive pyramid, which it is, I think you would attract more fans, because I think there's a lot of clubs that maybe aren't playing in the Cymru Prem right now who have the potential of growing bigger fan bases than some of the clubs that are up there at the minute.
Yeah, there'll be clubs just below, won't there, which is pushing for promotion or looking at promotion up to those leagues, which, for whatever reason, it could be that they've got a big following within the community. It could be that they've got, a group of people who follow them and home and away. It's different for every team, of course. But it's interesting because I hear sometimes people sort of criticise the Welsh League for the standard of football. And not that I'm saying I've watched loads of it, but what I have seen is I see a lot of teams trying to play the right way. I don't see what I saw maybe 10, 15 years ago, where there was a lot of, because of the muddy pitches, it was just a lot of hit the big man at the front, and teams would just have like a fast winger or a fast striker playing alongside, and that's all the kind of tactic was. So it's definitely progressed and developed over the years. And I think, even on Sunday, I saw a comment just now, can't find it, but they said like the pitch was, really chewed up in the middle. It was difficult, but Kyra still tried to play football the right way, and get it on the deck and have that movement off the ball and playing. So it's,
and that's
interesting.
That's kind of our maybe what sets us apart from other teams. We've got a really young team. I think like our average age is about 21, 22. So we've got a really, really young group for the level. But we've got really good technical players. Probably not one of the most physical sides. So you've got to find other ways, and you've got to be maybe confident in your technical ability, because that's how you're going to win games at the level, because you offer something different. But there is clubs that try and play. I still think it can be slightly dominated by being direct, but
of course,
I think that's the same across the pond as well. I think it is one of those things where the level you're at, that is down to the football that gets played.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think actually like that direct style of football, if you kind of watch like Championship and Premier League and whatever now, it's coming more into fashion, because where teams are trying all these, different formations, different tactics, 3 at the back, wing backs, 2 number 10s, all these different things that we see. Obviously, we saw the kind of progression from a 4-4-2 to a 4-3-3, and now it's a 4-2-3-1, and you see strikers playing up front. I think it'll come full circle, and probably in a couple of years, teams will be back to playing 4-4-2 with a big man and a little man up front, which I'm wholeheartedly for, because I love watching 2 wingers, 2 strikers. Just keep it simple. But that's me. But I think, it's same as fashion, same as music, same as everything, and it goes around in cycles. What with regards to the Kyra Ely players, give us some of the names and players that you think people should keep an eye on, keep a lookout for. Maybe they got a bit of talent, maybe they got a bit of quality about them. Not that you want to give any of them a big head or anything, but
I'm being tuned in for this part. I think they're training at the minute, so hopefully none of them see it. One lad's I think's got a bright future. If not in the Welsh Prem, maybe even beyond, is probably George Shepherd. He's a young fullback, and I think he's only 19, but he doesn't look young on the pitch at all. Like I have no worries in terms of physical battle when I'm watching him play. He's a men's footballer in my eyes when I watch him, and yeah, for someone that young to be playing at a decent level, and he's one of the better players in our side. I'd say he's in the side every week. It's going to be great for him, and it won't be long if it's not with Cairo until he probably gets that move to the Welsh Prem. I feel we've got Jack Ashford, our captain, who was at Swansea. He's a very good technical player. Liam Bishop out on the wing. He scored a lot of goals for us this season. And in fairness, there's a lot of talented players, and I'd say probably the majority of the squad should be playing in Welsh Prem football. I think at the minute we're maybe a really young side, maybe lack one or two experienced heads. I think if we got that, we'd be right at the challenging. But I think if you pulled like one or two and put them in a Welsh Prem side, I think as we've shown in our cup run, like they're at the level already. So yeah, I think it's a bright future for a lot of players in the squad. Fingers crossed we can all do it together. I know with the rebrand of the Welsh Prem, there's going to be more sides going up next year. So hopefully if we can get a good start, that's something we can strive for next season, hopefully.
So with Cairo being like a community club, do you put a lot of focus on bringing like young players in and giving them opportunities to play if they're up to it physically and stuff? Like,
yeah, definitely. I think especially with the link to Cardiff schools with Matt. So we've got a lot of players that have been maybe ex-academy, whether they've been at like Cardiff, for example, or Newport, Bristol Rovers, Bristol City. If they've been playing, if they've come through sort of the Cardiff school system, we've got a lot of players that have come through that way. So we do try and give a chance to young players. We've probably not got the biggest budget. We've probably got one of the lowest budgets in the league. So for us, that's sort of our way of maybe getting an edge on other clubs is through that link. So we do have a lot of young players. I think, now the challenge for us is probably, can we mould them with, I'm not saying we need loads of experienced heads, because I think we've got enough in the squad at the minute. I think maybe one or two more though. And, you're expecting maybe then to push rather than getting in a good position and hoping and being sort of glad you're there. So yeah, it's a really exciting time at the club at the minute, going into next season.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, off the back of the game on Sunday, it feels like even though the result didn't go your way, it's the momentum of that feeling. Like I would imagine, like it was a big week for the club last week, so you'd all be excited about the game and building up to the game and things like that. You want to take that momentum, don't you? And you want to take it into the next game. You want to take it into the rest of the season. You want to build on. You want that feeling more ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've shown through the Welsh Cup, obviously beating Barry and beating Bala, that we can mix it with those teams. Obviously, it was great last week. There was a lot of media attention. Some of the lads doing interviews and stuff that probably haven't had the chance to experience that before. Like I said, loads have just come from playing Cardiff schools football or maybe even playing in the Ardal leagues to then get a game like that sort of televised, a lot of attention on the club, playing in front of a decent enough crowd. It's good experience. And then again, like being a young squad, that's only going to help. It's now sort of building on that. You can't just go, well, that was really, really good run. We had a really good season. You've got to build on that. Otherwise, what is the point really? It should give hopefully the hunger now to go push on, and we're playing sides like that every week then.
Yeah, 100%. Did you get a chance to speak to the Wales manager on Sunday?
I didn't, unfortunately. I was waiting next to my phone, hoping it'll ring. I was going to get the boots out from Macedonia, but no. But no, it just shows like how big of an occasion it was for the club. And it was great that, like I said earlier, in terms of the FAW being sort of in touch with grassroots football and the fan base, like to see the Wales manager there watching Cymru Southside, probably not in the best weather either. It shows that they're making a conscious effort. And I know, like, for us as players and probably some of the younger lads, it's great to sort of play in a game or sort of experience that. So yeah, that was great to see him there.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Craig Bellamy has kind of talked the talk. He talked the talk, but then he's also walked the walk, and he's backed up everything he said, whether it's in regards to going to watch, Cymru Welsh Cup game or Cymru League games, or what he's done with the national team, with the first team, with the young players, with the way that Wales are trying to play. I think he's been massively impressive. Obviously, I had the opportunity to speak to him and sit down with him for a couple of hours, like 2 weeks after he was announced as Wales manager. And just in that event, the overall feeling of people who watched in the audience was they came out of it and they were just like, I would run through a brick wall for him now. Yeah. So imagine how the players will feel if he can get the same kind of message and the same passion through. Have you been impressed with what he's done as Wales manager so far?
Oh, I've been massively impressed. I remember, so I played against, when he was at Cardiff, I played against his Cardiff side, and you could sort of see that he was obsessed with the game. Like they had so many little patterns of play that I hadn't seen maybe a Cardiff academy side that I played against be like. Played really good football under him. But yeah, going back to since he's been announced as Wales manager, I think he's maybe surprised a few people in terms of like his temperament. And you can tell he loves the country. He sort of embodies what we are as fans. And I think it does obviously help. He was a great player. Don't get me wrong. I think you get that maybe that bit of excitement from the get-go. You might get that a little bit longer in the job if you need it. But look, I've been really impressed, not just how he's been, how the side's played. In international football, it can be a bit of your luck. Do you get a good crop of players? I think we have got a good crop of players, and I think he's sort of instilling that in them in the way he is with the press. I think in terms of the standards he's setting, he's trying to change the mentality from being like maybe an underdog who could make it to, no, we should be qualifying for major tournaments. That's the bar. So yeah, I've been massively impressed with him so far, definitely.
And I think the advantage that he might have as well is that the way he wants to play certainly suits young athletic players, and Wales have they've got about 3 crops of young players coming through now, which have got a lot of quality in the 21s, the 18s, plus the ones who are kind of almost in the first team already as well. That is exciting in itself for Welsh football, because those young players, you look at Nico Williams, who's like early 20s, and he's got over 50 caps. That is the advantage of getting the players in young, because we're a small nation, but getting those players into the first team, playing games for the 21s, then getting them into the first team early allows us to then, you end up with sort of early 20s, mid 20s, 50 odd caps. And there's a few of them, isn't there? Like Nico Williams with a lot of experience for young players. And I think that's going to benefit Craig Bellamy. I really believe that not only is he the right man for the job, but I think it could be quite an exciting period for Welsh fans, Oh,
100%. I think I was a bit surprised he didn't get the job previously, to be honest. I think there was maybe that bit of nervousness about maybe his temperament because of how he was as a player. But for me, he's been the right man for the job from the start. So it's great to now see him get the job, and also the impact he's had already sort of proved everyone right, I suppose, who was backing him to get the job.
Yeah, I think Cardiff would have kicked themselves that they didn't go for him during a period when he was, I know he left the football club, but like when he was there, and it looks like an open goal in hindsight, and the way he's taken to the Wales manager's job. But that's kind of pretty typical of Cardiff City sometimes, that they're a bit behind the curve. But it kind of is what it is. What's your sort of aims and plans now for the rest of the season, and Jack?
So I think for us now, it's finishing the season strong. We had pretty bad turn of the year. I don't know. I think we've won one game maybe since the turn of the year. So from the position we were in, which was probably because it crept into that top three, it's now probably a case of just ending the season well, and can you take that into next season? Just consolidating, I suppose, for this season. Obviously, we've had the Welsh Cup run. That should give us a bit of confidence. I think it's maybe took its toll in the league a little bit as well. So, yeah, for us, it's probably finishing the season strong, and then can we go again next year and properly maybe have a go in the league? Because I definitely think we've got enough talented players to go and do it, really. There's definitely enough talent there. So yeah, for me, that's what we should be aiming for next season.
100%. And if you're in the area for your local Welsh League club, or you're in the area for Carlyellaway and they're playing, get yourself down there and watch a bit of football, I say, because I think the more people we can get down to these grounds watching Welsh League football, the better. Jack, thank you so much, mate, for joining me. Really appreciate you having a chat with me and talking about football, talking about the weekend and stuff. I appreciate you, mate.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, mate. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
We'll be back in just a second with the latest from Cymru Sport's coverage over the weekend.
The home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sport.
So, as we go into the last section of the show, as always, I'm delighted to be joined by Cymru Sport commentator. And this week we've got a different one. It's Mr. Matthew Rowley. How are you, Matthew?
Hello, Simon. How are you?
Very well, thank you, mate. You good?
I'm not too bad.
Excellent.
Not too bad.
So, what games will you be covering this weekend?
Well, this weekend, it's back at Darren Park, home to Bracknell in the Premier League South. Merthyr not having, well, you could say not having a run of form, but that's only compared to their own form lately. They've drawn their last 3 matches in a row. Ooh. But obviously they're still unbeaten in the league since August and still top of the league. But these drop points have allowed second place AFC Tottenham to catch up. And Tottenham do have games in hand. They have 2 games in hand and are 4 points behind. But obviously Merthyr have the points on the board. Bracknell themselves aren't in a particularly good run of form. They've only won twice in their last 10 matches in the league. So it's all to play for on Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a big season for Merthyr. Obviously, they're right up the top. They're pushing. They do seem to have had that, like you mentioned there. They've had a bit of a drop in form. Do you expect that to carry on, or do you think it's just one of them rocky spells and they'll get through it?
Well, at the moment, as I said, it's only a drop in form when you compare to the standards that Merthyr Town set earlier in the season. They were playing some absolutely superb stuff, rattling in goal after goal. They are the highest goal scorers in the Southern Premier League South. They're up there with the best defences as well. And just before Christmas, their assistant manager, Andrew Smith, mentioned to me in conversations that they were keeping clean sheets that they weren't used to keeping. But it has to be said, since the loss of Lewis Twomley, the former Newport County and Wales under-19 forward, Merthyr just haven't looked as fluid, if you like, as they were. Twomley was undoubtedly the star player in the division this season, 15 goals, plus at least double figures for assists off the top of my head. I think he had 10 just before he left in January. He has had some minutes at Yeovil Town, but obviously the attraction of full-time football was a big thing for Lewis. So the club unfortunately didn't get a fee for him. So it was a big loss. But Merthyr counteracted that with the loan signing of Kiban Rai from Newport County. But when he was looking good last weekend, he had to go off pretty early just after 20 minutes with an injury. But he should be back this weekend.
Excellent. So What's been some of the highlights of covering Merthyr this year?
Well, since the start of the season, really, it's just been an absolute whirlwind of goals and entertaining performances right from the very first day, with a 6-0 win over Tiverton Town at Penydarren Park. The first defeat did come rather quickly. It was an unexpected one against Walton and Hersham, who I considered one of the best footballing teams in the division last season. Merthyr lost there, and then they lost another match to Gloucester City on the bank holiday Monday. But that was back in August, and since then they have not lost a game. And they went on a winning run, just rattling in goal after goal, including 6-0 win over Wimborne Town, 4-0 against Frome, 4-2 away to Plymouth Parkway, 5-1 against Havant and Waterlooville, who were a team in the playoff places as well. They also beat Saturday's opponents with a late Fraser Thomas goal back in November, 2-1 at Bracknell. And after that as well, they followed that up with a tremendous win at Poole Town, which was 6-1 after being 1-0 down at half-time. And then turn the result around over the Christmas holidays against Walton and Hersham, avenging that 5-2 defeat at Walton with a 5-2 win at Penydarren Park.
Incredible. They're having quite the season. Do you think? I was speaking to we had a Merthyr fan on a couple of weeks back, and he said one of the most enjoyable things of the season, apart from the goals, has been the camaraderie between the fans and the players. They've got they're getting quite a decent following this season, aren't they?
Yes, the average crowds have risen quite considerably. In fact, they were averaging just around 700 last season. I think the average now has risen to just under 1,000. They had just under 1,700 attend the home fixture against AFC Tottenham recently, who were, of course, the team in second place. That was a 1-1 draw in that one, but again, a tremendous game of football for the level. It has just been, the way Merthyr play is so entertaining. The way they stretch opponents from one side of the pitch to the other. And a lot of teams in the Southern Premier League do come to Penydarren Park and look to hit long balls and trouble Merthyr in behind their fullbacks. But they seem to have gotten wise to that this season, where last season they were a little slippy at times.
Lastly, Matt, just wanted to get your general opinion. Were you surprised when the Merthyr were offered the opportunity to go and join the Cymru Prem? Obviously, there was a big money offer.
I wasn't surprised the FAW made the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not. They've been wanting Merthyr to join the Welsh Pyramid ever since the Cymru Premier was formed back in 1992. And it was no surprise to me at all that Merthyr rejected the FAW approach. The much mooted £6 million was nowhere near that amount, and it certainly was nowhere near that amount up front. And the long-term business plan, after speaking with the board members at Merthyr regularly and on my away trips, where I am able to go on the bus and join in with that camaraderie you've spoken about, none of the supporters wanted to enter the Welsh system. They feel, and in my viewpoint as well, that possible glamorising the FA Cup and that chance that you can rise up to National League South, the conference, or the National League as it's now known. I still refer to it as the conference. I'm showing my age here. And dare to dream, get in the EFL one day. It's unlikely for a club like Merthyr, but the chance is always there. And whereas the Cymru Premier, it is just a bit of a glass ceiling. And unfortunately, the way Welsh football is at the club level, people just aren't supporting it. And they should be, but it's just not happening.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, as we build the show, I'm hopeful that by keep talking about the Welsh Prem, that we can, try and get or draw attention to it and talk about it more, because I think ultimately the more coverage of something is going to be better for its growth. But in terms of Merthyr's plans, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, absolutely, I agree with you. We covered the Cymru Premier quite extensively on Cymru Sport last year. Pontypridd United, Penybont, Cardiff Met, Barrytown United. We were regular visitors around the games at Merthyr. Plus, we made a couple of visits to teams like Aberbargoed Buds, Abergavenny Town, Cwmbran Celtic, Newport City. We've also covered semi-regularly FAW Trophy winners, of course. And,
Indeed.
They're the second highest ranked club in the city of Newport. Cardiff has the second highest ranked club is Cardiff Met, and their crowds are under 200. There's no Welsh Premier League club based in Swansea.
Yeah,
where is Welsh football going wrong that these big cities don't have Cymru Premier League teams or have decent levels of support? Because the people are there to support them. Certainly Penybont, Haverfordwest should, in my opinion, be getting 4-figure gates, but for whatever reason, they're not.
Do you think it's as simple as, in terms of getting fans in the door, so to speak? Do you think it's as simple as not enough coverage? In whether it be like articles, whether it be TV, radio, YouTube, whatever it may be. Do you think it's just as simple as that, or do you think it's a more deep-rooted problem?
Well, a possible hindrance for me is the lack of English language coverage of the Cymru Premier League. You can watch live matches on S4C if you want to, but most of the time it does not come with English commentary, and I suppose that would put off non-Welsh speakers, which the majority of us in Wales, unfortunately, are non-Welsh speakers. So the Cymru Premier coverage that was given on Cymru Sport last season was the only English language coverage of those matches. And obviously, trying to spread the word of Cymru Sport, it's a small station, it's a growing station, but it's a start. But there also needs to be a bigger broadcaster basically taking Cymru Premier football and showing it to a wider audience than there is currently.
Yeah, so I know that Cymru Sport, mine's gone, S4C, have an English language YouTube channel, and I know the Caira Ely versus Connors Key on the weekend in the Welsh Cup was on that, but I'm not sure if there was actual English commentary on there. But the point being is that hopefully you'd like to think that with this new kind of rebrand or this change to the effort that the FAW is going to make to the Welsh system, that they will try and tie in, whether it's Scorio and S4C or a station like Cymru Sport. But if they can get people covering those games and get it out to the people, you're much more likely to get people through the door and through the gate. And the interesting thing to me is something you mentioned there is that, Swansea don't have a Welsh League team within their sort of vicinity. And really, outside of Cardiff Met, neither did Cardiff. I remember the days of Inter Cardiff, way back in the day of, Inter Cardiff playing and stuff. But I think there's, and in Cardiff particularly, I think there's an audience for it, because I know, quite a few people who haven't gone back to watching Cardiff City as post rebrand. So there is people around who I think who would watch Welsh football. It's finding the right way to find them, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. But again, it's all it's all part of marketing in the product correctly. The expansion to 16 teams is, I feel, a good way forward. More fixtures, more clubs at the top level, so more chance for someone like Newport City, for example, to enter the Welsh Premier League and possibly develop closer ties with a club like, say, Newport County, Bristol City, Bristol Rovers, who are pretty much on their doorstep by modern travelling distances, and build those links to mainly encourage local Welsh players to start playing more at Cymru Premier level, so they've got that exposure and they know they can step forward. Brad Young from the New Saints is a prime example of a quality player who proved his mettle at Cymru Premier League level and earned a move to Saudi Arabia. The New Saints got just over $250,000 in a transfer fee for that. That's unheard of for a Cymru Premier League club. But that is the kind of thing that needs to happen for the league to grow. Wales should have a comparable league with the likes of Croatia, certainly Denmark, Norway. These are countries that are around 5-6 million in population. Croatia is a similar population to Wales, yet has massive football clubs, the likes of Red Star Belgrade. I say Croatia, they're Serbian, but I'm thinking of the old Yugoslavia here. Yeah. So please excuse me if I get mixed up. But there's massive clubs in Sweden like Malmo or Abro, IFK Gothenburg. In Denmark, you have Copenhagen getting 28,000 gates. That is what Wales needs to boost this level of playing and make sure its own league is competitive. Once again, the New Saints getting to Europe has been a big boost. I know they get a lot of hate in Welsh football circles, but their business model works, and you can't fault that. Can't fault them for that.
Absolutely. Matthew, thank you very much for joining me. It's been really informative. Quite enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you again towards the end of shows and stuff where we'll see what games you're commentating on. You can update us on Merthyr. I am actually hoping to go down to a Merthyr game soon because a couple of my friends go down there regularly. So hopefully I'll find the time one day. But Matthew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, my friends.
Thank you, Simon. Good to talk to you. See you soon.
Yeah, cheers, mate. So that was the Welsh Football Hour live on Cymru Sport. Big thank you to all the guests this evening, including Matt Rowley there, commentator for Cymru Sport. We had Jack Turner, Kyra Ely, defender, Darren Purse, Cardiff City first team coach, and then of course the legend, the king of Welsh sporting coverage, Welsh football coverage, Mr. Rob Phillips. What an absolute pleasure it was to speak to everyone this evening. Thank you, everyone, tuned in, commented, asked questions, everything. We'll be back next week with another episode of Cardiff City World and the Welsh Football Hour. We will have more guests, more fan opinion, more debate, and, of course, all the latest news and results going on around Cardiff City and Welsh football. It is my pleasure to guide you through it. We will be back next week. Thank you ever so much. Bid you farewell.
Wow! What a goal! Be a part of the action and help Cymru Sport to cover more games across the country.
It's 3-2! Oh my words! Where did that come from?
Your business can sponsor a commentary, reaching football fans with your message at the same time as supporting our live commentary of Welsh sports. Contact us today by emailing advertising@cymrusport.cymru.